Now, welcome to Good Morning Uganda Agenda. Here what we do, we have a guest in studios, we discuss issues of national concern, both local, regional, and continental or globally. The president, that's the chapter president, Milton Kambula, with whom you're going to be discussing the ongoing, that is U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit that began yesterday in the United States of America. And this is the second, because also former president, actually it is Barack Obama held one during his time. I don't remember Trump doing so, but now we are seeing also President Joe Biden hosting, and our very own president, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, on invitation by the President of the Republic, by the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, is attending this. Now, this is a three-day summit, and so much is going to be discussed. With my guest, we want to find out what is there for Africa. When we see countries with huge GDP, when we see superpowers sitting and debating with Africa, are we just called to participate? Do we have, is it of any meaning to us? Or we are attending because we're invited, and it's all about diplomacy there and being in good brotherhood. Of course, to many people, we had so many who were saying, this can't happen, but well, it has happened. Someone can't travel there, this and that, but that is something we will, on a lighter note, discuss later. Milton, you're most welcome.
Oh, thank you, brother. Thank you so much, sir.
How have you been? Some long time?
Yeah, we have been handling many global issues, very busy with reimagining and transforming education on the continent, but also our diplomatic effort to strengthen relations between and among nations, but also religions, communities, but also youth engagement and also civil society organizations to find a way of deepening democracy, human rights, and peace.
Now, you seem to be everywhere and involved in everything. What does global peace do?
Basically, the work we do
is it a non-government organization? Is it a government body? Because you're in, we here in peace missions in one way or the other. You're pushing for talks, then you're talking about education. You seem to be doing so much. Now, what is your mandate?
Well, our mandate is actually, we are an international global organization that is promoting and deepening what we call an innovative values-based approach to peace building, education transformation, but more importantly, education transformation. Our works, therefore, is to work with different governments and set up systems to be able to pursue transformation of the world. Our offices are in 50 countries, but right now we are very strategically working towards the South and North Korea integration. You are aware about that, and we worked closely with the Trump's administration, and the current president is coming on board to strengthen the reunification of the Korean people. But also Africa, we are in 17 nations. With several chapters, Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, Nigeria, Tanzania, quite many, South Africa, we quite in Asia, you know, a lot of them. We are organizing the Global Peace Leadership Conference, don't forget, in India, and we are praying that Prime Minister Modi hosts leaders all over the world, just like His Excellency Museveni did in 2018. That signed the Kambula Peace Declaration. But I'm amazed of President Biden in the United States now is hosting the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit, which we were very closely working with him to find a way of how to deepen peaceful relationships amongst African nations. That is what we do. But environment, education, youth talent development, a lot of work. Media, we have a big network of journalists we are training all over the world to make sure they deepen truthfulness, transparency in the media sector. Yeah.
Now let's look at the summit. When we see our very own president in the United States for this U.S.-Africa Leadership Summit, to begin with, can you throw more light to this summit? You know, because summits are summits. You know, we've had many of these, not particular the U.S.-Africa, but we've had similar organizations. We've had leaders come together. We've had the Commonwealth heads of states meeting. We've had leaders, African leaders being invited. One time, the Russian president did invite them. You see, so for this particular summit, if you are privy to know, what is the intent of such a summit?
First and foremost, I first thank my international president, James Flynn from the United States, who has worked closely with the Biden administration to make sure that this particular summit is hosted very well and in conformity with the needs of Africa. President Obama, of course, worked with him in making sure the first summit was successful, and it produced President Obama initiated the YALI program, and we made recommendations. I thank the U.S. Embassy in Kampala and in different parts of the continent that accepted our youth to go to the United States in the White House to be trained by Obama himself. This time, it is a special one because it is on 8 thematic areas. Just quickly, this particular one is number 1 on what we call eco-partnership, trade relations. We want, of course, America and the African nations to strengthen their good economic diplomacy. That's how we call it in our language. But then we must appreciate that our trade relations is now valued at $65 billion as it stands right now. With South Africa taking $21 to $23 billion, US and South Africa. We would like that to be strengthened. Of course, you must be aware that China's value with Africa, trade relations is now at $252 billion. So you now know the context of why Biden is particularly very thirsty to have strong bilateral economic ties with Africa. Of course, Africa has been the center of raw materials. You are aware, gold, diamonds, we are still as wealthy as 600 years ago. And our relations actually is beyond what we see right now. It dates back more than 600 years ago. Aware that the Africans built, several success stories in America today, we see today. So the next one is, of course, U.S.-Africa relations in terms of deepening democracy and human rights. As, of course, you are aware, like Uganda, you know that the United States has been supporting Uganda at a rate of, I can say, more than 800-something million dollars. Here in Uganda. That's just the U.S. as a government. So deepening democracy. And the second one is, of course, climate change. The discussion is very hot on climate change. Aware that now, right now, as we speak, for those who are watching this television debate, is that our future is in making sure we respond to the effects of climate change so that our sustainable future is guaranteed. We cannot trade, our security will not be safe. So if we do not talk about a collective resolve on climate change, what is the role of the West? Is to finance the damage they have caused on the environment. But also Africa to take lead in terms of opening doors for recycling economy, planting trees, making sure the freshwater sources we have are kept safe. So that is now the negotiation. It is all about win-win, win-win. But then on the part of Africa, I know for sure, this is their time now also to present to America and say, hey, I think it is now time to have what we call win-win partnership. We cannot have, for example, a global value of coffee trade all over the world, valued at $460 billion. And Africa is only enjoying around $2.7 billion. And when you come to Uganda, the farmer is actually being poorly paid, while the global West, and soon China joining, is enjoying the profits. And then the farmers are still using a hoe. Their children can't go to school. So that is how we want to negotiate with America and make sure that they also support our integration, economic integration as Africa. That's where the president yesterday made me very excited, the president of the Republic of Uganda. While he was presenting in the health summit, there's those what we call side meetings, side conferences. He mentioned it very well. Say, hey, our Dr. Gwang made the Covidex from locally available herbal trees, you know, but America has failed to tap and approve such a medicine. While we made trends to even treat COVID-19 patients here, that has not become a global story. So I like such a kind of leaders, and there are very few. Others have gone just for a photo show, to the photo show that I was part of, and the majority of them, they have just gone for photos. So I believe the African Union will be able to take us into the negotiation also of our role in global peace, by making sure that through this debate, Africa can be allowed to be part of the United Nations Security Council as a permanent member.
Well, Milton, that said, of course, you're so optimistic that we stand to benefit as a country, more also as a continent, which is Africa, with this U.S.-Africa Leadership Summit. Now, I want us to look at a number of issues. With the environment, yes, we had the COP, and we've seen the outcomes really saying, no, Western countries do more than lip service. Do African leaders, including our very own leader that is there, you use the word negotiation. Do we have capacity to negotiate with these countries, meaningful negotiations? Because when you look at our budgets, we, on a huge percentage, rely on them. He who pays the piper determines the tune. When you look at our economies are largely built on this. Even sometimes our military strength. We get donations here, we get trainings there. Many times, they have set the pace at which we run. So when we see such summits, where can we drive our faith and hope that what we are picking from these summits? I've seen our president, recently I saw Kenya's president, number of presidents on the, being a permanent member on the U.S. Security Council. They've cried out loud. Almost every opposition, I saw Paul Kagame, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, Kenya's Ruto is the recent to step up and say we must as Africa, but do we really have the capacity to force that change?
The good thing your name is called Chirabo, it's a gift. When you ask such a question, you are resurrecting the founding fathers of Africa. The spirit is in your head right now. And I think you are asking the right question at the right time. An economy of more than 23 trillion US dollars, that's the America's GDP. Africa combined of 1.3 billion people cannot even reach even 20% of that economy. Combining all of us, 54 nations, all of us, everything, our GDP still is staggering at exactly around 1.9. We are trying to shoot 2 trillion, but it has failed all these years. And we are saying we are poor. And while we are poor, we are seated on gold, on diamonds, on timber, on fertile soil. Look at our climate. Water surface is fresh. Look at our fruits. Look at everything. Oh, Africa. Africa, wake up. Africa. The most important thing now is to have the right negotiators on the table so that Africa is not taken for granted. I liked the Secretary of Defense recently when he said it's now time to take Africa as a serious geopolitical partner, not just as a friend. Called 50, how many countries? 49 countries called to America, come. But who were stopped to go because African Union had already sanctioned them. Mali is one of them and others. Come, now they run very fast. The head boy has called us, the policeman of the world. Oh, Africa, wake up. How many times have we now hosted this in Africa and called all world heads of state in Africa, hosted by Africa? Oh, Africa. When they die, oh, Africa. But when they die, no one comes to bury them here. That is the Africa that is ashamed even when God has given you everything.
Now with those lamentations, Milton, where do we get the strength?
The strength.
That this second of the kind can be either a turning point or we can see meaningful negotiations if there is room. Because I'm seeing committees sitting, maybe I would wait for the official thing to see Royal African presidents deliberating and giving presentations, not from the small committees, but where do you drive that strength? That this is not just going to be like the many.
Yes.
This is going to have tangible. This, you see, COP in one way made me really wonder that when we saw the COP26, this one that just, even the recent one that was in Egypt, you see, there's so much zeal, but African leaders and representatives move out lamenting. You see, we made recommendations which suggested, you know, there is no compelling force to the Western world to act otherwise. Because
you are very poor negotiators. So the way forward is when you civilians and citizens of Africa are voting, start voting those that can defend Africa's interests. Two is that time has reached for us as Africa to negotiate with everyone out there that, hey, don't make us join your wars so that we become enemies to the world. Three is that we must at this particular time know the priority demands of Africa. And one is for us to integrate. Whoever is not going to be against the integration of Africa is therefore an enemy of Africa's future. And thirdly is that we must have now shared currency, because they can no longer continue taking your gold as they build their reserves to base and make value of their dollar or other currencies against your poor shilling, when actually the dollar is supposed to be here in Africa to make sure that we have one African currency which can become the most valuable currency in the world.
Don't you think such a summit, I need your view, we are going back to the days of scramble for Africa, where we see that now China is greatly building strength in its economy and partnerships with African countries. Look around the African continent. Almost 85% of the countries, China's strength is visible in road construction. They're having so much loans from China, and maybe such closeness and desire for America to have Africa on board is for its economic benefits and global position in power and might, contrary to what we may think is all about improving trade, is all about improving relations, but rather more protecting and maintaining grip of Africa.
They are going to announce $55 billion investment for 3 years to be shared across African nations, to respond to health crises, to respond to, of course, climate change issues, to respond to peace and security efforts. 55 billion shillings shared by 54 countries of Africa for 3 years. How much money is that?
Now you're speaking like a typical African.
Now, the issue is
whose interest has already run to, we are going to be getting money. How much money is that?
Corrupted mindset.
This is how even our forefathers were corrupted.
Exactly.
And were taken over.
Exactly.
When they saw the white man come under scramble for Africa. And these superpowers were saying, who takes which part? Who takes which part? How do you entice an African? They enticed them with weapons. How do you entice an African? And mirrors. Today, don't you think Africa again is being enticed with money's donations? At the end of the day, whatever is being given to us, that we think these are loans, these are grants, are holding us captive. Just yesterday, I saw the head of the Anglican Church. It was Sunday, where he came out and said, we should even leave this Canterbury thing. But he said, we must learn to be financially independent. Because if we want to, then we must have the financial muscles. Because we depend on these people. So this excitement, Milton, of money, they're going to give this money. At the end of the day, I'm seeing like now we are being divided again. Who offers what? At the end, and yet later on, much as we think we are jumping out of the hole, we are sinking. We are only stepping on sinking sand.
The whole discussion, let us say win-win. What does win-win mean?
Do you believe
it is on
at the bottom of your reasoning that there is a win-win situation
because
here?
It is on
that
paper.
Africa leaders can debate for?
As we speak today, each African country is presenting their own demands. Because before we say America is building its interests, is working toward strengthening their domestic security by making sure they support our security. So that terrorists do not turn Uganda into their base. You see now, Africans don't think like that. They don't think like that. For them, they are, first of all, they are not united. For America to become the superpower of the world, they had to have a war, a good war for integration. What is that meaningful war Africa is in today that will help it become an independent and prosperous nation? America had to sacrifice to make sure the states become one nation under one president. What is Africa doing today so that they no longer call you as prefects, 54 prefects, divided? And you cannot measure up. And that's why they disrespect us. That's why in our diplomatic engagements with the whole world, they say, no, you must vote like this. They even dictate. Why did you vote? Why did you abstain, first of all? Uganda abstained on the issue of Ukraine and Russia. There was a question, why? Why did you abstain? We are now on the issue of China and Taiwan. Africa is already being cornered. Please make sure the issues of China and Taiwan, don't mix yourself in that politics. But while you are here, when you are there voting, you don't know the voters now. We are talking to voters. Our future is in the hands of you people watching this television. Well,
let me first remind my viewer here that please, in case you want to be part of the topic of discussion, you're sending us a message on the number on your screen, which is a 0709 60 25 92. Please, let's have your name. I'll not be able to read any message without a name. Please send your message with a name. That is the only way we'll be able to read out. And we are still looking at the U.S.-Africa Summit. How relevant is the summit? How relevant is the summit? And through this summit, can we see Africa's potential and opportunity? That is something very important. In this summit, are we going to see Africa's potentials and opportunities being achieved through this summit? Or is it merely, okay, welcome, this, that. The end of the day, we say it was held and that went down there. Books. So please, in case you're to send a message, I will gladly read that with a name. And thank you so much for being with us. That is the number on your screen. A text message or a WhatsApp message is something that I'll be glad, because feedback is really very important. to us here at UBC. Yes, please continue.
I would like to really retaliate again that the future of Africa depends on the quality of its citizens. What I mean is time has reached when the whole of 1.3 billion people, remember, India can enter Africa more than 8 times. So Africa is big than what you see even on the map of the world. Time has reached, as you consume Chinese products, or American products, or German products, time has reached for us to unite and industrialize. Produce products that can also be consumed by the Americans wherever they are, by the Chinese in China, by Turkish in Turkey. All of us, as we say, win-win dialogue. I mean, time has reached when an African must also win the World Cup. Time has reached when a Pope can also become an African. What I mean is that even our education, because we are talking about global education for all, we signed that several years ago. Why should Africa, invest in the weakest education of all? And the one funding it is actually the other man on the other side. And dictating for you to learn in a foreign language you do not understand. What I mean is...
all that you're saying, Milton.
Yes.
How then can this summit be a way of realizing that or of achieving that? Because we can continue saying Africa, the time has reached, this is the time. Like the youth always say, we are the leaders of today,
tomorrow.
Now they changed. We are the leaders of today, they are no longer for tomorrow. But you see, lamentation doesn't cause acts. You must position, doesn't bear fruits. You must position yourself. Someone once said opportunities come to those who are prepared already for them. Otherwise they'll keep bypassing you. I believe Africa has had so many opportunities, but we've not positioned ourselves. And you're still being taken on a ride to enjoy. For example, well, back home it could benefit. For Russia, there are people who had all political rumors, all allegations, how even our president cannot step in the U.S. And you know, they were using this as talk and garnering support and all that. We had those who would say, we've now gone to this country that you're talking about, any time of this and that and all that. Yes, politically, this could be a good score. For NRM to prove that we have good relationships. So anyone who thought maybe this could cause, but this is evidence too. But away from these minor achievements, the big dream of Africa.
Now, you are tickling the tail of the lion. What I mean here is, as I have always said, on that table, there must be a volcano of individuals without fear or favor, that the leaders you people have voted have no fear of an American president. That when they are seated in that White House, in the summit, they have the courage, like the courage I'm speaking with here, that a president of Africa is able to stand and say, Mr. President of America, time has reached for you as a nation of America to respect our cultural values. Full stop. Then everyone, the 54 presidents, say, yes, we are with him. Then they also roll out another motion and say, America's effort to support Africa's economic, political, and social integration. Then all 54 countries stand up and say, yes, that is a common voice we are here for. The moment we don't have that joint shared doctrine and principle, then it means you will speak something else. I have different demand. I even fight you and say, what you're asking, no, me, is not what I... Right now, like for example, on infrastructure, as you are aware, technology is one of our biggest bottlenecks in economic development. Railway transport, talk about technology, even computers. The computers we have here, even when they are producing, this one is for third world countries and Africa is number one. We don't have quality. And they have refused to do what we call technology transfer. Don't forget, during COVID-19, Transparency International gave a very good report condemning all coronavirus vaccine producers all over the world. They considered Africa at the last, because why? Because there is no justice in the whole world, politics and diplomacy. So what must be done is for you voters, the 1.3 billion people, to wake up peacefully and demand what belongs to you. And that, number one, is to make sure that we stop the export of raw materials. Why do we allow our nations not to have a law prohibiting and stopping export of gold, export of cotton, to make the clothes we are putting on, to make sure, so that America, because that's what they did to build America. These were very poor people, disorganized. They had even to go for a war. Stopping taxation on tea, stopping slave trade. They said, no, I think they had passed 100, actually like 100 and plus years to build America we see today. For Africa, the last 600 years, it has been a business of pulling each other down, going into elections that are stolen. So we have wrong leaders in offices. When it comes to human rights violation, number one. When it comes to understanding Pan-African values, here we talk on TV, but we are the ones actually dealing with criminals.
Well, some would say that even these challenges, the catalysts are the people that are inviting us today.
Of course, your enemy cannot give you techniques to help you stabilize. So it is upon us.
But they have intentions to keep Africa where it is.
Yes. You must be aware of that.
They can still get the minerals, they can still manipulate us.
Yes.
They dictate even political systems.
Of course. Is this democracy designed by Africans? Even what we are putting on, is this your Pan-African or African design? We had Baka cloth 400 years ago. Right now, if we had moved with the ancient technologies and science, common knowledge, 600 years right now, we would be the superpower of the world. We have
Let me give you some of the messages that are coming in. Thank you so much for the feedback. Really appreciate that. Morning, I'm called Nasa from Makiso. It's just US versus Africa. They never do anything in others' favor, but theirs. So I see no good result out of it. Thank you very much. I'm enjoying the show. Well, good morning, Uganda. This is Paul Kaga. I want to appreciate Ambassador Milton for the consistent efforts in changing mindset of Africans. I personally feel we have to come back and love ourselves better, build around common African value systems, unite and position ourselves. But we need to get rid of greedy leaders. That is Paul. Then it doesn't matter if leaders, okay, this one talks about the element of democracy, and that is Edward. Thank you so much, because he says it doesn't matter if leaders don't want to live overstaying power. It hinders, as long as he talks about that these people are so much into what benefits them. And this summit could be aimed at just better position US is on the global. Then, hi, Azizi from Robowa. I can assure you, apart from Africa leaders traveling to the United States of America, there is nothing much they can get from US, because it is the US just interested in strengthening its influence over the continent. The influence of China and Russia is gaining in Africa is the only fear for USA, but it's not interested in helping Africa. Then, good morning. What brings all about that is Africa is ununited. Hatma, love you very much. Well, thank you, Hatma. And I'll swiftly move through. Shafit, we are better than US and European countries. It's only our president here in Uganda who can speak out for Africa. But we have to enforce our youth to learn technology. There we will lead up this planet. Let's first look at those briefly.
You see, if you took a census, Chirabo, we are here with you. Whether you don't like what I say or whatever, or whether you are our brother from maybe Western countries, this is a disclaimer. If we took a census right now, a research that is independent, you realize that 1.3 billion people on the continent have started realizing that it has been an empty deal. An empty deal because now the young people realize that, oh, this has been a poor education system. That's why now they are rioting, demanding for an education system that works for them. Can you imagine? You study and become a doctor in Africa. But when you're in America, you cannot actually practice your medical degree. Can you imagine? And we're talking about global education for all. You cannot even manufacture anything. And remember, the funding that we receive from Western countries is actually dictated upon that invest this in education. And they tell you even that this is the curriculum. If you want to say, I want my children or my population to learn in their local language, they say, no, Britain is one of them. The colonial master takes the blame. Now, for Africa to unlock its potential, colleagues, my friends, my sisters, my brothers, do not expect to continue to depend on donations. Because we have everything. Actually, it's what they are using to develop themselves is actually coming from Africa. Who cast Africa? Who cast Africa is yourself. To think that someone else will take care of your problems. Who told you there must be someone that must be born in another country to take care of your mess? So I blame, first of all, these heads of state. Because of they are weak. They are weak. They are not, they don't know even why they are. God has given them those positions to help us. None of them is ready to die for Africa, to defend Africa, to stand. It is only a few that try to stand. And when they stand, looking back, you don't see your colleagues also saying we are with you. Then they terminate you. So it is risky business. When I'm on this TV, I am on a risky business. They can even kill me out of this studio on the road there. Because when you make Africans wake up, it simply means you want those Western countries to collapse. So for us, we are saying, as diplomats, time has come for Africans to unite. We don't want any more of these borders. Manyabusia border, Manyakasasiro. I want to use a plane from here to Abuja. Trade, free trade area. And that's why I liked Biden this time. Because he's ready, because he had promised it. That's why he got the votes of the black people, the black Americans in America. And that's why he won the elections. He promised us that indeed it is Africa's time to enjoy. And part of the agenda I saw, the Africa Free Trade Area. For me, I'm very happy now. To President Biden, my elder, I thank you, because if you can fulfill that alone in your term, in your first term, I would say America has had the best and the sweetest president. For allowing Uganda, Nigeria, Tanzania, to break barriers in trade, that alone. So the next move would now be, out of these presidents who are cowards, to open up now, to fear nobody, and launch an African currency, an African passport, an African transport system, railway from Cairo to Pretoria, from Nairobi to Abuja. Then we look at how Africa can become self-sustaining on medicine, health care. We don't want to this $70 billion. India is what is stealing from Africa. Can you imagine? 70 billion in treating you people, but all that money that you would use to manufacture your own drugs here is going to New Delhi. Can you imagine? Are we stupid? Can you imagine?
Milton, I love the passion. I love the energy that you're using to explain what Africa should do. And as we talk about this summit, I know you're an exposed person. Ever heard of the term the American dream?
It's not there. In Africa, it's not there. It's me who has written it in my book, The African Dream.
The American dream,
it's powerful.
One of the things that is
Very
there
powerful.
Is to keep America a global power.
Yes.
And when you look at any American, born in America, grown up in America, no matter the challenges in America, they still believe America is the best place.
Yes.
An American knows, even that the moment they begin understanding and reasoning very well, They know they are a powerful people. They know they are there to dominate. Africa, over a time, we've lost self-esteem. We've lost love for our countries. We've lost love for our own people. An American is concerned, a death of one American can take the entire state's recognition.
Yes.
And mourning.
Yes.
In Africa, because of the continuous wars and all that, we've lost value for humanity. So, when we look at these challenges and the countries that invite us to merry-make and say we are going to discuss issues
at our own cost, can you imagine?
We are going to discuss issues of bilateral relationships. Even when we know that we are the weaklings here, as we wind up, do you think that really we can achieve what we are told with these invitations? That these are the reasons why we are going. We talked about this, a 3-day event. There is environment, there is health, there is what I hate most is democracy. It's also one of the issues on the agenda. I must be very honest. When I hear democracy as defined by the African man, I mean by the white man for Africa, look at this mess we have here. You know? This is the same people saying do are the ones doing don't, and they're enjoying the drama in the theater. So, do these really carry any meaning?
Let me be positive. I am positive Africa has a good future. And what we have just considered saying here are just tantrums that show how we are disappointed. We have suffered colonialism, slavery. We are now in neocolonialism. We have suffered more than any other continent of the earth the damages of the Cold War. We are people who continue to suffer diseases that are manufactured not by our own nature, by those nations. Time has reached, colleagues, as we wind up. Those of you watching us from different embassies all over the world, our friends, our American friends, and everyone, the European, the Chinese, we are not enemies to anybody. Africa has never created any war. World War I, World War II. We have just been used as victims in all your wars. Now, as I conclude, I believe the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit 2022 is a wake-up call to leaders all over the world to really see Africa's position and guarantee it a space in the 21st century education, because without you opening for us that door, that small door, we will not have a productive population. 2, you want your own security, but what's Africa's security? Is it in democracy or human rights without fundamental systems that help it to be achieved? Without roads, without hospitals, without business, without good price of our goods and services to the world market. Therefore, the human rights issue will not be achieved. A poor population cannot achieve human rights and democracy. Poverty and all our problems rotate around you people. Can you imagine? Africans, several years ago, we were feeding the world. We were taking care of you, of the world, without interest. You remember one king from Ghana or Mali traveled to Middle East and donated. We are good at donating up to today. If we are going for Christmas, we will come back with a lot of food. Free, everything free. Now Africans wake up. Time has reached, because now we understand that even the diseases that take our money, we are manufactured in factories. So everything is being taken away from us. From us, the clothes. Can you imagine? We plant cotton for them to make our underwears. After giving them cotton, they make the clothes and we buy expensively. What I mean here is now time has arrived for everybody to become an entrepreneur, to become a producer, to become a manufacturer, so that you earn through selling. If you don't sell something, you don't eat. That is the philosophy that will turn Africa into a producer of goods and services globally consumed. Then it means stabilized economy, which will give us money to build economies for our nations, and now we can donate to the rest of the world.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Chapter President, Global Peace, that is Milton Kambula, for your time. Well, it is time for Africa to ensure and know that it is us to develop ourselves. Hope in somebody else to come and lead peace in Africa, build our economies, support what we rely on as African, that is long ago. If we still stick to that, then Africa, we may not see the desire of a continent economically empowered, military-wise empowered, and ready to debate equally with these superpowers. Have a lovely day. Ruben is here to take you through the world of sports. Good morning.